Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tyrone Brown Jr., and I am so glad that you are with us today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wherever you are tuning in from, whether you are tuning in live on our Facebook, whether you are tuning in live on our YouTube, as well as on our Twitter. And then guess what? We are on our own website, which is www.thelifeshowpodcast.com. So you definitely want to tune in right there. Also, we are on Hoosier Heat Radio. For those of you that do not know, we are on Hoosier Heat Radio. And so I just want to say thank you all for tuning in. It's definitely a privilege and honor and a pleasure to have you all with us. I got my homegirl. We was raised up together in the same church. You know, y'all gonna get to hear her story if you ain't heard it already. Okay, because she out here, y'all. This young lady has been going since day one and has never missed a beat. And so I want to welcome, for those that don't know who she is, her name is Paulina Johnson. She is a life coach, leader extraordinaire from all points of the country, overseas, international, all of that good stuff. But I'm going to let her tell her story. Paulina, how are you?
I am doing extremely well. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share with your guests, your followers.
Definitely. Well, it's
definitely
a privilege. It's definitely a privilege to have you on. Also, we're on Hoosier Heat Radio. So for those of you that are viewing us live, if you want to download the free Hoosier Heat Radio app, you're more than welcome to do that right now, and listen to us live on the radio. And so we're going to get into this. I know that, there are people out there that may be listening, you may be viewing wherever you are from, but it's definitely worth the wait. It's worth the wait. And so I'm just going to set up and let you tell your story. And actually, first of all, let's start here. Let's start off with you just growing up, where you grew up at, and then we'll start from there, and then let's go to what school you went to and how that all orchestrated.
Yes, thank you. I am so proud to say that I am a product of Gary, Indiana. I am, wherever I go, I proudly boast my hometown, simply because I definitely believe greatness comes from Gary. But not unlike many others, I did grow up with a very, very difficult childhood, dealing with poverty. Both of my parents were addicted to substances, and that really presented a lot of challenges. But in addition to being addicted to substances, they also had mental health challenges.
Wow.
And those went misdiagnosed, undiagnosed for many, many years. And as we know, the old tale that a lot of people who are having mental illnesses, they reach for alcohol or drugs, as coping mechanisms. And so I think from as long as I can remember, to say that I had a childhood would probably be an overstatement. I think that I had great responsibility very, very young, which kind of took me off course at times, because I really didn't have guidance or direction. I just really was using, education as a way to kind of teach myself, but also using my faith to be more of a guide. And so, Gary, Indiana, I would always say, Gary, Indiana actually, made me the woman that I am today. But before that, my family is actually from Tuskegee, Alabama. So my great grandfather was actually a patient in the Tuskegee experiment. So although I had kind of a very difficult upbringing with my parents, when I had an opportunity to live with my grandmother Pauline, who I am named after, I really learned to appreciate the legacy and the rich history that we came from, and really just the stick to itiveness that we had to, my family had to incur from migrating from the South to the North. So I think that's just like a little bit of basic, background of where I was born and raised.
That's good. That's good. Well, we all know, and those of you that are listening, again, welcome to the live show. Sitting in the studio and having a conversation interview with my good friend, a longtime friend, Paulina Johnson. And here it is, born and raised in Gary, and then from what I know, that you went to Gary Roosevelt.
The best. We call it the Black Harvard of high schools. Let's talk about it.
And so growing up and then going to Gary Roosevelt, what was that experience like for you?
Oh my gosh. I think it was very amazing, simply because there was so much pride instilled in you as a student, number one. And then also I had such a family lineage from Roosevelt. So my father graduated from the mighty Velt in 1975, and I graduated in 1995, eighth in my class. So it was just always amazing because our teachers were very much well educated, had varied careers. A lot of them were teachers at Roosevelt because they didn't have the opportunity to work in corporate America due to racial discrimination. So I would always tell people, like, Roosevelt was my HBCU. We had a bad man, sports was on point. I was so excited to be a varsity cheerleader my sophomore year. I mean, it was phenomenal. I have so many great memories from just going to such a pride instilling high school. And so, it's funny, the first time I went to West Africa, I was so overcome with emotions because it was in 2018, and it was right after the Black Panther was released. And in that movie, it was so powerful because it showed this entire world that was based on Black Africans, right? And I said, man, we had our own Wakanda in Gary, Indiana, and we didn't understand how beautiful it was, right? So, I mean, our doctors were Black, the gas station owner was Black, the drugstore owner was Black, all of our teachers were Black, the entrepreneurs were Black, every career, the dentists were Black, every career we envisioned, we saw it being possible, right? Because we were in this sheltered environment. So, I am very, very proud of just the legacy that Gary Roosevelt imparted into me. Just having, they were big on pride in yourself, pride in your family, and pride in the race. Okay.
Definitely. Well, in life, we know that there are highs, but then there are also lows. With you being in high school, were there any low points in your high school career, or your high school stay, should I say, that you experienced, and what was it like?
Wow. So now we're getting into the peeling back the layers of the onion. Okay. But I think the lowest part for me, I would say, in high school, was that I was an extremely suicidal teen. And so that's why I have a big heart for those who teens are really having difficulty to really cope, because at the age of 13, my mother literally moved us from Colorado Springs, Colorado, to live with our father, who was in Gary, and said that she dropped us off at the beginning of the summer, and she advised that she was going to pick us up at the end of the summer, where she never did. And I never lived with my mother after the age of 13. And so because I was going through that broken feeling that, I didn't know that it was feeling abandoned, by my mom. For me in high school, I felt pretty isolated because my father was really strung out at that time. And he was a functioning, as I could say, drug addict. He would go to work every single day just to be able to fund his habit. And I just felt like my only release was school. But, kids a little rough. Okay.
Yep.
And so, I didn't have the best attire, and I didn't really felt like I fit in, so I used more of my academics and the support I received from my teachers to kind of create my own family. But at the same time, I still was feeling like when I went home, I didn't feel as if I belonged. So I really didn't feel as if I really mattered, because my father and all of his sickness was abusing us, my sister and I. And I was just dealing with such a lot of neglect, abuse, rejection. And so at the age of 15, now let me first paint the picture. At school, no one had a clue of everything I was going through because I always kept a smile on my face. I was always positive. I always stayed active. I think I was president of my class at that time, varsity cheerleader. I mean, had all of the trappings to be a successful student. Okay.
Definitely.
But so no one could know like everything that I was going through. And so at the age of 15, I became pregnant. And so before my pregnancy, I was popular for all of the right things, right? Paulina's so positive, she's so this, she's so that. But when I became pregnant, it was like I had the scarlet letter written all over me. I found out I was pregnant at 4.5 months. I know this makes no sense, but I found out that late, right? And so I found out in May of 93, and I gave birth in October of 93. So my first day coming to school, my junior year of high school, I'm a full pregnant belly, right? I will never forget the look on everyone's face when I walked in that school. It was almost as if I was the walking dead. Now, from that point prior, it was always Paulina want to be, everybody want to be around Paulina, for all these things. That moment, no kid wanted to be around a pregnant girl, right?
Yeah.
The guys I thought that were just friends, nobody wanted to be associated with me. And I had a lot of rejections of teachers who felt like I had ruined my life. And when they saw me, they literally felt it important to let me know I had ruined my life. And so although I felt like so shut out, I always look at that experience as being the worst and the best time of my life because it taught me so many life lessons.
Yeah.
Number one, when you up, everybody loves you. When you winning, everybody loves you. When you successful, everybody loves you. Make one wrong decision, fall off your square, go through a health challenge, go through some debt. You will really see who really don't care about you. And so it was such a life-changing experience because all that I would achieve in my life after that point, which I had a lot of dreams, had no idea I could accomplish it. I never ever call a restaurant, I'm this successful person, so people who clamor to me, they truly are for me. I'm just thinking of the mindset, like everybody wants to be around success and positivity, but keep everything in a balance. So I think it was just definitely a worse time because in high school, after I became a parent, my father ended up taking me out of the house with my son who was 5 months at that time. And so here was, I was a high school student, still keeping my academics up. I just think about how God's favor was with me the entire time. Because when I left school to give birth to my son, I only stayed out of school for 4 weeks. Came right back to school. Like just the things you do as a mother that you take for granted of just the kind of time to spend with your child, spend with your baby. And so finish that junior year. By the end of my junior year, my father had put me out of the house. I was living homeless, person to person, whoever would take me and my baby in. Had the mindset to pray, stay in my faith, you know, and write the mayor of Gary at that time for assistance. And thank God for Thomas Barnes. I still write him to this day. He was a blessing and a godsend for me. He was the mayor of Gary at that time, and he ended up getting me an attorney that was able to get me into the courts and help me become an emancipated mind. So I shared that story to say, like, even though I was down and out, I still was focused forward, and that, okay, I'm homeless, but I still need to work on accomplishing my goals. For me at that time, it was finishing high school and finding a place where I could be safe and raise my son. Well, when you underage, you can sign contracts.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
Excuse me. So you have to find someone who can help you, or you can't afford an attorney. You know,
right.
Go to legal services, like, hey, can you give me an attorney?
Wow. And so, what was that like, trying to, trying to get around all of those loops, and all of that red tape? You know, did you ever think that you were gonna, be able to get out, or, get free of all of that?
So let me say this, which I tell people, it is so important. It is so important who you have speaking over you. So when I was in high school, before I, let everyone know that I was pregnant, when I found out, I had a history teacher, Miss Barbara Talaferro. I love her to death. She would require us to listen to Les Brown motivational tapes in her history class. So half of the class she would teach, and the other half we would just have to sit and listen to Les Brown tape. Okay. And one tape that she would always have us listen to is "Where there's a will, there's an egg." But in my mind, I was always hearing "Where there's a will, there's a way." And so whenever I would feel like, man, I got to navigate this, I have a test to study for, but then I don't know if I'm going to go home tonight and people are going to be treating me as if, like, who's going to be around me? We really don't want you here. I would just focus on this is being temporary. And what I always share is that a lot of times when we're in our situations, they feel so permanent. They feel so permanent. But if you really trust and believe, and it's biblical, but it's also, I want to say climate. If you think of climate, the seasons always change, right? Yep. And so the determinant factor for me was that either I'm going to sit here and say I ruined my life and listen to those people who said I couldn't, or am I going to aspire for greatness? And so what I would do is really read positive things. I would go to the library. If someone was talking negative, I would cut them out, even if they were family members. Yeah. I just couldn't hear it, right? Because in my mind, my self-talk was, this is temporary, Paulina. Yes, everyone is looking at you like a young girl, but you know what God has placed in you. You have overcome X, Y, and Z in your childhood. You're going to overcome this situation. So I think for me, I'm now accepting it, okay, in my 45 years, okay, that it was something that God instilled in me as a young girl that was different than the norm. Yeah. So I was comfortable being an outsider to a certain degree because I always felt like there was something more for me. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. So in high school, I was just focused on, hey, I'm the laughing stock now. But one day I won't be.
Yeah. And that's what's important. And here it is, first of all, thank you for coming on here and sharing your story, because so many people need to hear that somebody, has overcome. And secondly, they don't know the mental beatdown that you get when you're up 1 minute and then the next minute that nobody wants to talk to you, nobody wants to be around you, everybody is shunning you, and so you go through all of that mental anguish. And on top of that, not just everybody, but I'm talking about now your parent puts you out. And not just put you out, but put you out with your newborn child that is only 5 months at the time.
5 months.
And so now you have to be mentally strong
Mhm.
in order to overcome, all of those obstacles and those changes. And then on top of that, not only do you come on here and share your story, but now today being the day after your 45th birthday.
Yeah.
How awesome is that?
I feel blessed. I feel blessed that I'm still living. I think about, there are many times I've been very close to death. I just think about the presence of God and his angels that have encamped around me my entire life. And I make no concessions about it, about my faith, and that I know that if it wasn't my faith being rooted in God and trusting and believing that he had a greater plan for me, but also accepting the call that was on my life to evangelize, to share, because a lot of times you battle with people can't handle the truth, right? They love the light. They love the light.
Yeah.
But they don't like the dark.
Oh,
right?
Come on.
But not understanding that dark place that people went through and overcame, it really strengthens and motivate other people to really see their life in sections, and to say, this is a season. I have a decision to make.
Yeah.
Nobody else has a decision to make. And, it's so interesting because we think about our life in choices, right?
Yeah.
And if I wouldn't have made that choice. And I always say to my oldest son, who is 28 now, me becoming his mother was life-saving for me, because my dream as a little girl was always to be a mother. I was that little girl who always had the neighborhood kids, who always saw all the babies at church, and so I knew that my greatest desire was to become a mother. So knowing that I was carrying the life inside of me, I was like, I can't give up. People may have given up on me, threw me by the wayside, but I'm not going to ever do that for my children. And so a lot of times we have to look at life to say, we got to break the generational curses. And I understand it's hard to do at times. You feel like, why I got to be me? I want somebody to come and rock me to sleep. I want somebody to hug me. And realizing that that's going to happen, but you have to be that voice to express the truth of all that you have overcome and been through. And I'm the first to raise my hand and say, don't model me, just learn after my mistakes.
That's a really good mantra, because now, and I wanted to go through that valley, because people think that when you're successful, oh well, they were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and to really come from, you were the person that people sought after, before your pregnancy, and then during your pregnancy, people are like, oh, she didn't ruin it, it's over for her, she's a statistic. And to now, you're being a single mother, and now being so successful, being a published author, not just one time, but if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3 times, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I mean, and just not being a published author, but also being a leader in the world today. If you don't ever go through anything, then how do you tell somebody how to come through something?
Yes, I agree.
And that's where you are now.
Yes.
And you're able to mentor other young ladies that come through the struggle.
Yes.
You said something when you first started. That's why your heart is so towards struggling children. Where is that now a part of your life?
So interestingly enough, I started a nonprofit in 2013 called Achieve Against All Odds, only because I use it as an opportunity to educate and mentor urban youth, or those youth that have been really, really struggling with just that childhood experience. And I'm going to say a negative childhood experience. But in that, I also learned there's a other side of children that are struggling. Those kids who may not have had difficult childhoods in the sense of, neglect, poverty, but they were forced to be things or be people they did not want to be, right? They were never given an opportunity to really explore who they are. But I think for me, just having the opportunity to speak to different youth groups, to share my testimony, listen to their testimony, I think I get so frustrated when someone says, well, they telling too much, or they talking too much. I would always say, you're not the person they should be talking to, but they should be talking.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of it's the truth. Our secrets keep us sick, right? And so I'm telling you, the enemy will have you in your head so much of like, you're not this, because if they found this out about you, you're not that, and I feel like for me with kids, I want to, encourage and inspire them to be free, but not necessarily just children. And this is where, it comes to accepting the call that is on your life. Because when I released my first book, I Am You, Achieving Against All Odds, available on Amazon. But
I got it, y'all. I got it. I got a signed copy.
Right. And so when men started reading the book, I was receiving a lot of outreach from men, who were like, this is so powerful. I grew up with a mother who was schizophrenic, or I grew up with a father who was schizophrenic. And they were like, man, just to see how you overcame those things for many, many years. What I share with people, I really want to do a relationship book because I have failed so much in relationships, but really I've learned so much. And that a lot of times the relationships we try to mirror as adults, our romantic adult relationship, is really modeling that parent-child relationship. And we don't like to call it that. We like to be like, well, no, I'm just trying to be an adult. And so because I had experienced rejection from my mother, rejection and neglect from my father, I was always trying to prove myself, right? I was trying to prove myself in relationships because I was taught that honestly from my parents. No matter what I could do, they never gave me the validation that I wanted. And for me, I'm always expressing to children who have been abused, you can't live your life like that. You have to recognize that's a pattern, because you will allow people to come into your life who, for whatever reason, bring you harm. But that moment you see a boundary has been broken, this is inappropriate. Abused people keep accepting it. Because our baseline is, well, at least it wasn't bad as this. Or at least he didn't do this. Or at least my girlfriend didn't do this. Well, your girlfriend is smiling in your face, lying on you behind your back. The man is disrespecting you from every angle. Like, this is disrespectful. And so for me, it was like recognizing the patterns that I mirrored in my romantic relationship. It really stemmed after what I saw being taught to me from the parent-child relationship. And so that's why I said it is so important for us, number one, to share our stories, but then also tell the truth. Tell where you messed up. Tell where this, I was off. You know what I mean? Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. We've all made decisions we didn't. In hindsight, like, I shouldn't have did that one.
But see, and you said it, that's where we go wrong, because we're trying to cover up our mistakes instead of using that mistake or that bad choice as a step up to say, look, this is what you don't do in this situation. And instead of saying that, what we want to do is we want to cover it up. Don't look at this. Don't even. Right.
Spade a spade. You know what I mean? And I heard someone say this probably like 3 years ago, said, if everybody learned when they were younger to choose people or situations that chose them, meaning that your spirit is in agreement, right? It's not one of those situations where you just let anybody in your life. It's just your spirit is in agreement. And when I can look at hindsight and say, where did I miss the mark in my life? My spirit was never in agreement. So where did I learn not to trust my spirit, my decision making, because it came from, as a child, dealing with my parents, saying that, how do you honor your parents when you know this is wrong, right? and your spirit is saying, don't do it. But because you were taught, no, look beyond that, just do what I say. It's like, no, this is out of order. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of times and for us growing up in church, that's a whole nother discussion. Somebody, look, take a breath. Take a breath. That's a whole other discussion. We really deny the truth of who we are, who God has called us to be. And I always say, if you want to find out who God has called you to be, just ask him.
That's it.
That's
absolutely it.
He tells us. He tells, like he reveals to you in so many ways. And it's not a fight. Right. It's not I gotta figure this out. It's just so organic and transitional. It's like this is the peace that passes all understanding. So yeah, you know,
you getting under my skin. I'm trying to hold my peace. you did it, man. You did it. No, but again, look, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tyrone Brown Jr. And of course, we're here with a longtime friend of mine, and y'all gotta understand where we go back to. You know, I'm talking about what 11, 12 years old.
Yes.
You know, in growing up in the church together. And again, we were, and I'm not trying to, you know, sell it like that, but we were different.
We were,
you know, coming up, we did things different. We taught different. And so now that we're in the real world, the world sees our difference on us.
Yes.
And in us, rather. And now you making a difference in the world, Paulina. It just, every time I see an accomplishment from you, I'm like, I know this young lady. I know her. Like not just, hey girl, hey boy. No, I know her. I know a lot of the struggle, you know, that she went through, and you know, a lot of the aches and pains. But now to see you and see you pressing forward and not allowing anything to stop you. I'm so very proud of you. So proud of you. Definitely.
I'm so very proud of you. Thank you so much.
Definitely. And so now, even in your job market, being a leader in your job market, well, let's actually go back because you know, after high school.
Yeah.
Let's talk about after high school. And here it is. You already had, you know, a child.
Yes.
Now let's start right there after you graduate from high school, number 8 in your class.
Yes.
Now, where do you go from there?
So for me, it's perfect. I don't know if you hear an echo. Do you hear an echo?
No, I don't.
Okay, just make sure, because I hear reverb, and I'm hoping everyone is hearing it just fine.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay. And so for me, I think the biggest thing was academics, right? Education, I felt was going to be the great equalizer. I was getting out of poverty with that degree, right? So I attended Indiana University Northwest. And I really wanted to attend IU simply because my mother attended and she never had the opportunity to finish her school, so she never received her degree. And so I had a passion for computers and I wanted to be a computer programmer. So I ended up completing my bachelor's degree, which is a 4-year degree program, sometimes 5 in 3 years. So I ended up graduating with my undergrad at the age of 20. And by the Lord's blessing, was able to land me a dream job downtown Chicago, working for a consulting firm. So every dream that I had related to my education and moving on up, it came to fruition as I started working for the first company I worked for. But knowing that I wanted to kind of transition more into marketing and sales, I ended up completing my MBA, and then I started working in the steel industry in the sales and marketing department. And I've had like a 20-year corporate career in steel sales, and I've been loving it ever since. sense. So it's funny because I entered, our entire family worked for the steel industry in some kind of form or fashion because Gary, Indiana is the steel city. And so literally I was telling my family, like, look, I'm going to college, so I don't have to work at the steel mill, right? Not even having to understand that there's a whole corporate side of these companies, right? All I know is my dad was a welder. He would come home, with the little roughness, all the dust everywhere, the welder's hat. And I was like, I'm not doing that.
Right.
But, having an opportunity to attend a job fair at the University of Chicago, I met one of the recruiters. And even when she asked me for my resume, I was like, no, ma'am, I don't do hard labor. She was like, oh my God. She's like, no, we need salespeople. I was like, really? To sell steel? I was like, I'm thinking it just sold itself. I'm like, everybody needs steel. But so I started off in their Chicago office as an inside outside salesperson. And it's interesting because the first territory that they gave me was the Detroit area. So I would service customers like Being Steel, Set Enterprises, a lot of the minority owned companies and stamper locations that was stamping the steel for the auto companies.
Okay.
So I mean, it was a whole new world for me coming from IT to 100% sales of steel. And steel is not like, as they say, like a sexy product. You know what I mean? It's not like Procter & Gamble. It's not like, hey, I'm selling IT solution. It's like, look, I'm selling a light flat roller steel coil.
Yep.
But it was always so interesting because when I would meet my customers, they would be like, we had to meet you in person because we could not believe that you are in sales for steel. Because there's like a side of the steel industry that's very dirty and grungy. But then there's what I call the front alpha side, where it's like, rarely do you enter the plant, but we're trying to negotiate the deals with the customers. So just to make sure the production people, can get their hours in, But it's funny because I advocate for women to join manufacturing because of this career. Because a lot of times women feel like I can't do the hard labor portion, but everything you may want to work in as far as HR, IT, finance, purchasing, supply chain, all of those opportunities are in the steel mills. You won't be working in the steel mill, but sometimes you'll be in the plant, sometimes you won't. But it's so many viable careers that people don't even have the pipeline of understanding to in the steel industry. So yes.
So now you're advocating for women to work in the steel mill, not so much as a laborer, but for all of the other departments that are there.
Yes, I love it. I think it's such an untapped market, manufacturing overall, because it's not just like, because the steel industry supplies automotive, distribution, aerospace. We supply every industry you can think of. And a lot of times, because we are not aware of these careers, we don't even apply, right? We don't even submit resumes because we're thinking, oh, there's nothing. I don't want to work in HR and I'm at the plant. And it's like, no, you're HR in a corporate office. You know what I mean? So it's so many opportunity, communications roles, finance roles, tax auditing. It's so many opportunities. So I'm always like, when women want to talk to me about opportunities in the steel industry, I'm like, look, let me tell you where to start. Like,
and that's a great thing.
But let me add this point. I think I have the courage to enter this industry in this regard, in that I'm a second and third generation steel worker, right? My grandfather and my father worked on the production side. But I think for me, I wanted to do something different for my family to expand them to more of the corporate side. And then also too, just having that experience of, being isolated, in high school as a youth and kind of being on the outside of everyone, I was okay with taking a risk in a career that may not have been the norm. You know what I mean? Because I think about when I finished my MBA, everybody was having all these fabulous job offers from this company, that company. And I remember I really wanted so badly to work for Anderson Consulting. That was like my dream job. I never got called, never had an opportunity with them. Maybe like 6 months later, after I accepted the job in the steel industry, Anderson Consulting tanked. So in my mind, I said, see, the Lord was protecting me.
That's right.
Because I would have went to this place as my dream job and would not have had a job 6 months in, and so I just always tell people there are so many correlations to your personal and professional life that
Yeah.
if you kind of just line up all those things, I would always say, even now when I'm getting challenged in anything, I'm like, Paulina, you overcame this, right? You overcame that. This is nothing. Lil Rel is one of my favorite comedians. He be like, this nothing, boo boo, this nothing. I'm like, it's nothing, boo boo.
And so now, being that you have overcome so much, now it really has you being progressive
Yes.
to now challenge yourself
Yes.
to now reach for higher heights.
Yes.
And now what and I know there's some things that's on the horizon.
Yes.
What are some other things that you have going that hasn't hit the surface yet, and anybody, no one knows really that is getting ready to happen?
I think for me, I always expect great and positive things in my life, even when I'm down. Like, I remember when I went through a divorce that literally could have took me out because it took me out of my church family, all that I knew, right?
Yeah,
All that I knew. And all I knew in my mind every night when I would pray, God has said, I'm giving you greater. I'm giving you greater. I'm giving you greater. So when I got the opportunity to move to Michigan, and I have to tell this testimony because it's so paramount,
yeah,
when I was sitting, so let me back up just a little bit because I
okay,
think this kind of goes along the journey of why I'm always expecting great things.
yeah,
So when I was going through that period, I mean, I was extremely depressed. I think that January, I had just had heart surgery, barely recovered from heart surgery, found out that my marriage was ending by August of that year. I'm at this time a single mother trying to take care of 4 children. I mean, every imaginable thing that could go wrong could go wrong. I was like up to here in debt. I mean, it was just ridiculous, right? And all of the responsibility fell on my shoulders of caring for my children, being a primary person to pay for all my finances in my home. It was just ridiculous. But during the day, again, I learned how to kind of keep things focused. Like, let me compartmentalize over here and at work because I'm a manager. I'm not going to put this face on. And so when I was married, I was presented with an opportunity to take a promotion in the same area. Let me
yeah,
just say this clear. I had to deny the opportunity because I was married, because my husband at the time said he did not want to relocate.
okay,
When I was going through this, no one in my office had a clue I was going through a divorce. Nothing was going on. One of my vice presidents gave me a call and said, hey, Paulina, we have this opportunity again in Michigan. We want to relocate you there. And I said, you want to relocate me there. Now, before this call came, I had a prayer that I put together, and it was like me manifesting everything that I wanted to transfer in my life. Debt cancellation, I wanted a new home, I wanted a new location, all these things I had written down. So he says this, and he said, but before you consider it, he said, I need you to look at our relocation packet. Well, when I looked at the relocation packet, not only would they help me sell my home, they would help me buy a new home. Like, it was all of these perks and benefits, right? And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, let me see what that money looking like. I was like, and so he called me the next day and was like, well, hey, what did you think about it? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm very much interested. And he said, the only thing is we're going to have you go through the interview process. And at that moment, you're trying to be like, now why you just don't give it to me? You
yeah,
give it to other people. But
yeah,
now you want me to go through the interview process. And so I was like, you know what, bet, okay. And he's like, look, this role is yours. If you want it, just go through the interview, just going through the ropes. Okay, cool. I go through it. When I'm sitting at my desk, after I say yes to that process, I'm sitting at my desk, an email comes across the screen. And it's like, hey, our company is going to be the sponsor for the London 2012 Olympics. We want to send representatives from all of our offices. If you are interested, in this, submit your name and answer like 4 or 5 questions. Well, when I saw that email come across, the first thing I said was, this was God confirmation for me. Because, and I said, the job is going to come out. I said, and I'm going to London. That's what I confessed. I said, the job is going to work out and I'm going to London. Because when I was a little girl living in Colorado Springs, this is where I always say, God always let us know he is always with us, right? When I was living in Colorado Springs, we would literally train. We would go and like our weekend was ice skating and swimming at the actual Olympic training facilities. So the USA Olympic headquarters is actually in Colorado Springs. And so when I was little, I was obsessed with the Olympics. I would watch them all the time. I was like, I'm going to the Olympics. Could not play a sport like that, but I just love the Olympics. I love the competitive side, right? So in my worst, darkest moments, I'm recovering from heart surgery. I have been left for dead, my children and I. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm struggling financially. I thought I had a church family. Nobody, it was the leprosy story on another level because, she going through a divorce. She might be going through. Then I get an opportunity. I'm focusing forward. I get a vice president call out of the blue, right? Potential opportunity. I see the email come across that says an opportunity to go to London, which reminded me of the dreams of my youth. And God is like, Paulina, I got you. Believe this. All I did was submitted that. Not only was I the only USA employee selected to represent my company at the London 2012 Olympics, they paid for me to go to London 3 times, right? I stayed there the entire duration of the games. Totally free. Didn't have to use no vacation, didn't have to use anything, right? I'm just saying doors opening. He relocated me to this area. But before, let me tell you how faith-minded I was. I was looking for homes in Michigan, didn't have no money, barely had enough. Checks bounced.
Oh my God.
I'm going seeing the realtors like, I'm going to get this, that, and the third. Wrote it all down, right? Before I was to move here, my company, because I keep good records, from living as a youth on welfare, having to account for all of your welfare spending, they gave me the entire loss of my home in Maryville and then also helped me with my down payment here. So literally, I say this to say, I was to move the end of 2011, December 31st, 2011. They gave me a bonus on my check that was out of this world, right? I was able to write checks, send, electronic, paying off all my debts. So when I came to Michigan, I was debt free. I went, all of that furniture I had that was used hand-me-down, no, I gave it away. When the movers came to move my stuff, I said, you could take that with you. I went, my kids and I at that time were living in a hotel. I went to the furniture store. I went in there, I said, I need to furnish 5 rooms. They thought I was laughing. I said, no, 5 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, a dining room, a kitchenette. That lady was like, she said, oh, you want to do financing? I said, no, ma'am. I got a release from my credit union. I got 5 hours to run this card. Do you see what I mean? I'm just to say I had nothing. And I can tell this story with a smile on my face, but there was a time I couldn't even tell this testimony because I was so humble at God's love for me in that I didn't have a natural mother and father. I always had a supernatural father with me, even when I didn't even understand it. And I thank God that so many people fell away from me at a certain time in my life, because if they were there for me, I would have still been following them. And a lot of times when we're going through, we want everybody to like surround us, hold us. No, they need to fall away, because where you're going, you got to be able to stand on your own. And for so many years, I was waiting for my mom to come back. I was waiting for my dad to get delivered. I was always waiting. And so now that the transition they're no longer on this earth, I can't look for the fantasy of one day. No, I got to look for what has been the reality. You know what I mean? And so that's why I said it's important that despite all those things that I went through, I'm always focusing forward because I can remind myself, I can encourage myself when I'm down to say, but remember when God brought you through that? Remember when you can go and you see stuff and you be like, and this is not any slight against anyone, but for the underdog, for the person who didn't have, was overlooked, misjudged, misread, or whatever, there's going to be a day that when time absolves you, people can't deny. They could have believed whatever they believed about you. They're going to come back because their peace is going to be so disturbed. They're going to have to say, I got it wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
God was with you. Yeah. It may not have looked like it. I didn't understand it. And that's why I feel like even in this Spirit of God, the movement that he has now, he has radical people out here who have radical life experiences, radical, testimonies to show people, stop this. We're going to stop all this game plan.
There you go.
We stopping it. That's the next level. The next level is this. You want it ain't gonna be faking. You gotta be real. And for me, I would always say I was before other people's time, but I was always in God's timing. Okay, that's it.
You better say this thing here. Oh my goodness. You right on cue, because it's a lot of people that are in limbo right now. And they're looking for a way out. Your testimony is right in line with a lot of people where they are right now. And they don't think that their way out is coming. But what you have been preparing for, you will receive.
You will.
Nobody. So if you didn't prepare for it, then you can't receive nothing that you didn't prepare for.
Say it. You gotta be responsible. There is a part of you that has to be responsible, meaning that you have to be responsible for your life.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, I made this decision, I'm looking for somebody to give the answer. No, you made that decision. God is going to give you the answer. Sit and think about it and make the sacrifice.
Yeah.
We can't get all those things that we are asking God to give to us, and then we don't want to put in the work. I tell young people all the time, and even women, because I love mentoring women who have, been through changes. It's like, look, at one point, you're going to have to look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you.
Yeah.
I remember I went through a period of time, I want to say in 2011, I kept saying, Lord, I don't know the definition of love. Because my parents told me they love me. It came with pain, hurt, rejection. Friends may have told me they love me. They judged me. Church people may have told me they love me. They judged me. As soon as I made a wrong decision, they wrote me off and threw me away. But we have to make the decision to say, Lord, you define love to me. And when God said, love is freedom. Love is acceptance. Love is sincerity. Love is transparency. Love is honesty.
Yeah.
Well, that's common sense. When you ain't living your life like that, everything else become like this the norm. And you take a step back and you this don't even make sense. Right. And so that's why I always tell people, don't chase another person's blessing, because I promise you, what God got for you, I'm telling you, I'm living the life. It's for you.
It's for you.
It's for you. But you have the decision to grab it, and not just naturally grab it and I'm just grabbing in the spirit. No, it's I'm going to make the decisions. I'm going to, I'm going to love myself. I'm not going to make decisions that are going to put me in a bad way financially, emotionally, physically. We gotta own that. We have the power, and it's we are made in his image. And his image is that I am the author and the finisher of my faith. See? And we sit there somebody, and that's why I said it all started for me. during my darkest times, when I started sitting, getting quiet to myself, getting an understanding and a revelation of what God is trying to show me about me and my life. So I can't be enamored by what I see on the TV and the social
Yep.
media and all these things,
Yep.
because I know God is real. And even if you can see this flower behind my head, the reason why I have this as my background tonight is I actually took this picture of this flower when I was laid up in Rush University in Chicago, just fresh out of heart surgery. Someone sent me some flowers. I was laying in that bed all alone, barely could move, in excruciating pain. And all I did was stare at this flower and said, "This is such a beautiful flower." And I said, as soon as this nurse come in here to take me for my walk this evening, I'm going to pick up my camera and I want to take a picture of this flower. So when I have this flower, I'm in the midst of cuts to equipment all in my chest. You know what I mean? Afraid I was going to die at 32 years old, and I'm still seeing the beauty in everything.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
so that's what I got going on. Still seeing the beauty of everything and great things in store.
Look, your testimony will resonate throughout the rest of the world. Listen, I want you to give the information about your book to those that want to be able to get it. How can someone get, first off, Achieving Against All Odds?
Yes.
How can they get that book and your last publication?
So let me just say this. I kind of removed my last publication from the internet because I'm going to do some other things with that. But my first book, I Am You, Achieving Against All Odds, is available on Amazon.com. You can search for my the title of the book, Paulina, or the author myself, Paulina Johnson. And you can find me on social media, YouTube, Paulina Johnson MBA, Instagram, Achieve Against All Odds, Facebook, Achieve Against All Odds. Look, I hate to say it, but you could just Google Paulina Johnson.
Say Google me.
Google me. I'm everywhere.
And she is, y'all. Look, I'm so thankful that you accepted the invitation to come on. And you know, this ain't the first time that she's accepted an invitation. I was the director of another place, and I called her up. She was like, "Tyrone, I'll be there."
I'm always
she came out and spoke. You know, look, always at a phone call, and she was like, "Well, Tyrone, what do you need?" And I remember, you know, she went through some tough times with death in her family, and this is a woman that had COVID and still here to tell about it.
Yes, Lord.
Oh my goodness.
Still recovering. That's why I'm like, still recovering. Thank God. I'm like, I tell people all the time, COVID is real. Stop playing the games, okay?
Yeah, definitely. But look, Paulina, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate you. We're gonna run this cast couple more times over, especially with it being on the radio and then being on all of our social media, our website. Again, thank you so much. It is definitely a privilege and honor and a pleasure to have you on and to share your testimony with the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look,
Tyrone,
ladies and gentlemen,
I love you. I love you to life. And I just really thank you for giving me this opportunity to share. I mean, I am so very proud of you. I'm so grateful for what all God is doing for you and the inspiration you are being to others. And you always been this way. It's always been on you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Look, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate each and every one of you for coming out, for joining us tonight, for joining us on the stream, for joining us on the radio. Look, be expecting more from the live show. If you don't know, we just surpassed 1,900 followers. Okay, we're up to right around 1,921, something like that on Facebook. But we still growing. And we're coming up on 2 years that the live show has been on the air. So look, it's only up from here. We keeping on moving. We got some exciting news that's coming up. So y'all probably want to keep y'all ear out. But again, my name is Tyrone Brown Jr. This is another live show production. Look, you all have a great and safe evening. Look, don't let the bed bugs bite, but praise God in everything that you do. Look, have a great one. Peace.